Fernando Alonso throws the race away.
Yep. So we've got a couple people risking it for inters. The track is not fully wet, so those people boxing then are they're like, we think the rain is coming. You don't know, because if it dries out, turn 5 to 6 would have dried out and you would have been throwing it away. But a couple people go for inters. Fernando Alonso, as the rain is falling on lap 54, they decide, you know what, this wet track is, maybe they said, I don't know what they said, but maybe they're like, I think these hards might be struggling with a damp track to heat up back in sector 3. So why don't we pit and put on new mediums? And then a lap later, basically everybody is something like 30 seconds off the dry laps, trying to like, you saw the onboards. It looks like, you know, the video of that little Twingo or whatever smashing the barriers at turn 6. That car would have been faster than a Formula 1 car through that sector, 100%, even on its roof probably.
This random Fernando Alonso going on to mediums strategy is straight out of the small team looking for a big result playbook. But they don't need to do that because they're second in the championship. They can play it safe. They can put inters on like everyone else. They don't need this big win or like a big result to carry them through the season. You know? You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I get it.
It's like a big risk that a smaller team would have taken if they were in that sort of position. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Aston, this year, you're an actual good team. You can afford to be safe and not do a silly little risk.
Yeah, I get it, man. But here's the thing. Right, here's just walking through it quickly. Lap 54, he pits for mediums. Verstappen stays out, right? So on that lap, Verstappen is out on his 54, 55 lap old mediums that are tired, but still going. And he's tiptoeing. He bleeds so much time. The gap between the drivers is 13 seconds on track at this point before pitting. The pit loss is just shy of 20 seconds, so that's how much time you lose driving through the pit lane. But Verstappen has a very cautious lap because it's super wet, and Alonso only loses 10 seconds from pitting onto mediums, not 20. The gap between the drivers is 23 seconds. A lap 55, they are both on mediums at this point, and they both pit. Alonso manages to find 4 seconds on track over Verstappen, so Alonso is pushing, and Max is probably being quite cautious, and he pits again, and he comes out 19 seconds behind Verstappen. Looking at Tsunoda as an example, who wasn't particularly fast, he was a second or so off of lap time. So if he hadn't pit, he'd gone straight on to the inters there, they would have come out ahead of Verstappen. And people argued and said, oh, Max would have overtaken him. Like, you have two of the fastest. Where? Yeah, the fastest two cars on the track. How is Verstappen going to overtake Alonso, who is roughly, within a second of each other? Even if Alonso was slightly slower, if he gets track position on Verstappen, that's going to be a very tall order. The likelihood that Alonso would have come out ahead of him if he would have pit on an inter instead of a medium is extremely high. And I've had several other people in Formula One, including strategists, say, I agree with that. But profile pictures on Twitter disagree with that. So that's why you should be careful about profile pictures on Twitter.
So basically, we lost a Fernando Alonso victory. Is this what you're telling me?
Well, realistically, they just consolidated a P2. Because like they had gapped everybody else when everybody else throws on crap tires. Yeah, but it would have been a risk for Alonso to fit the intermediate. But also at the same time, that the rain is high. You see other people's sectors. You see dry people struggling in sector 2. You see inter people doing just as well in sector 3. So they risked and said these hard tires are going to be a liability, and the rain will not get worse. Was what they banked on, and it didn't cost them anything except a chance. But P2. I'll take a fucking P2 all day long. All they need to do is keep scoring all those points. But Alonso's going to have to score a lot more points than just P2 and P3 if Lance is going to be finishing P14. Where did he finish?
Slowly but surely we're getting there.
Where did
to the Fernando Alonso P1?